Hey, good morning. This is Warren Redlick. I'm really excited to report on the latest news for Tesla. The share price has shot up this morning. I'm going to show you this first. The the share price is up to 1200 and above. This is on great news. I'm going to talk about this in more depth. This is on the great news that Tesla reported on vehicle production and deliveries. I'm not very good with this stuff, but Tesla reported delivering 90,000 vehicles, and only 5% of those vehicles were subject to lease accounting. That means they get it's more valuable to the company. Of course, this is early numbers. Numbers can change. While our main factory in Fremont was shut down for much of the quarter, we have successfully ramped production back to prior levels. So that's fantastic news for Tesla, and very exciting overall. This share price now, Tesla was flirting with the 1,000 level for the last several days, if not longer. Tesla had been down not that long ago. Tesla was down to 300. My last time I bought was around 500. Tesla has been flirting with this 1,000 level for a while. Oh, to the moon and Mars. Yes, thank you, Jeffrey. So there were a lot of hints in the last few days, right in this period, that Tesla's end of quarter vehicle delivery numbers were going to rise. And if you follow, one of my favorite YouTubers is Hyperchange, and I follow Hyperchange a lot. I follow some others, Stephen Mark Ryan. Can't remember what his channel's called. No, that's Limiting Factor, somebody else. Stephen Mark Ryan is Solving the Money Problem. But a lot of YouTubers and people on Twitter have been talking about what might happen with vehicle deliveries, and this, delivering 90,000 vehicles was, I think Wall Street estimates were averaging around 72,000. So they far outperformed what Wall Street expected. And what the reason for this spike here, I'm assuming people can see the spike at the very right side of this graph that I have on the screen. The reason for this spike is there's a perception that a lot of people have, including me, that if Tesla reports a single dollar of profit this quarter, if Tesla reports just $1 of profit this quarter, Tesla will be included in the S&P 500. The final profit announcement would be in late July. I think it may go to 2K and higher, Oliver, but I'm going to talk about that during this. So if they are able to get S&P 500 inclusion, then what ends up happening is the index funds, and I own S&P 500 index funds, there's all these large index funds that are forced to buy Tesla stock. Now, market cap for Tesla is around $200 billion. They just passed Toyota. Actually, with the latest increase, it's even more. And it works out to somewhere just a little bit less than 1% of the S&P 500's total value. So all these companies are going to have to buy all these shares, and there's a couple of challenges with that. One, Elon Musk owns 20% of the company, and he's not selling. There's crazy people like me, and I think there's a lot of us. As a share of my net worth, I own a ridiculous amount of Tesla stock, and I'm not selling. I actually thought about rebalancing yesterday and selling a little bit, and I said, no, I'm going to hold on. And boy, do I feel good about holding on right now, because the stock is up like 20% from when I was thinking of selling. 10 or 20% up. Huge jump. Up 8% according from the end of the day yesterday. But there's a limited pool of shares that are available to be bought. There's the shorts are all in trouble, and all these companies have to buy stock. So there's going to be this surge of demand sometime in August, and we're all looking at the share price. That we anticipate what's going to happen with the share price, and we anticipate that when August comes, all these index funds are going to have to deal with S&P 500 inclusion, and even if it doesn't happen this quarter, I think it will happen this quarter with the latest numbers. But even if it doesn't happen this quarter, it's looking really good for the third quarter. So all these companies are forced to buy stock. There's this huge surge in demand for the stock. There's a lot of people who own stock who aren't selling, because, like me personally, look, Oliver Quinn in the chat said, "Why isn't Tesla 2K yet?" I think Tesla's going to 10K or higher. I think this is a $10,000 stock. This could be a $20,000 stock. I'm not letting any of it go. Every once in a while, I think, okay, I'll sell 10 shares just to sort of take some profits, and I can't talk myself into selling it. I was literally having this moment yesterday. I was like, I really should sell 10 shares just to take some profits. So if something bad happens, I'll feel better about myself. No, I don't. Well, Jeffrey, we know there are people who are short. Jeffrey says, Jim Chano says he's still short. I don't believe him. There's still a short interest. It's documented. I think something like 14 million shares are shorted. I forget the exact number. So anyway, when all these funds have to buy, and when there's very few people who are willing to sell relative to the normal market transactions, are some people want to buy, some people want to sell, and you have a supply and demand issue where all of a sudden demand spikes, but people like me, we're not interested in selling. So there's a small pool of shares that's available to be purchased, and the demand is much higher, and that could spike the stock. And that's why, Oliver, I think you're correct. I do think the stock will go to 2,000 or above sometime between now and August. I'm not, and this is not investment advice. This is Warren being excited in the morning, seeing the news. I think this is fantastic news for Tesla. It's fantastic news for Tesla shareholders. And really, let's get to what Tesla's about. Tesla's about accelerating the transition to sustainable energy. I'm not a big climate change guy. I don't like pollution. I think internal combustion engine vehicles pollute regardless of CO2 or not. And electric vehicles are better for the environment overall. I think they're better for consumers. I think they're better vehicles. I don't have one yet. I couldn't, when I needed a car, the Model 3 wasn't in full production yet, and I got a Volkswagen Passat that Ross Gerber likes to mock, but he's right. But I have an early reservation on a Cybertruck, and I will be buying a Cybertruck when it comes out. And I just see, the cost of operation, the cost of ownership long term, the value, the less hassle that you don't, if you ever have to go for an oil change or just having to go to a gas station and all these little tiny hassles in your life that you get rid of, they're faster to, you see, Oliver, I'm an old man now, I'm 54. I appreciate a car that goes fast. I certainly appreciate a car that goes fast, but there's the practical side. Look, I got a family. I want to get my kids somewhere. I want to take a trip. And if all of a sudden I can take that trip and it's going to cost me $50 less for that trip, if my vehicles, especially when you take depreciation into account, Teslas don't depreciate the same way other cars do. I mean, you might, in accounting sense, you might depreciate them. Oliver, I'm not good at making predictions, talking about those specifics. I would encourage anybody watching this, watch Hyperchange later today. He's going to break down the stuff much better than I could. I'm just sharing my excitement this morning. I would almost guarantee Hyperchange will be live streaming sometime today, and I'm going to be watching it because I love what he talks about. Yeah, they're safer. There's so many advantages to a Tesla. And so many different ways. I'm having massive Model Y envy, but I'm set on Cybertruck. I'm still a Cybertruck nut. So with this big pool of demand from the large exchange traded funds and mutual funds that are committed to the S&P 500 index, they're going to be forced to buy tens of millions of shares of Tesla in order to match up with Tesla. See, normally when a company enters the S&P 500, it has a $10 or $20 billion market cap, and it's a small drop in the S&P 500. There isn't this massive short interest. There isn't this crowd of crazed, passionate investors like me. So when a company gets in the S&P 500, it normally gets a little bit of a bump from the increased demand from these funds, but it's not that huge of a demand because they're a small part of the S&P 500. And with Tesla, it's such a big, it's coming in as a huge company because they didn't make a profit for a long time, and they're finally, it looks like, going to be eligible, hopefully in August, maybe in November, October, November. I forget when exactly that would happen. And it's even if it doesn't happen in July, August, the inevitability is there now. So if you're a long-term, even a medium-term investor, you're recognizing by the end of the year there's going to be S&P 500 inclusion. This stock is going to shoot through the roof. I do think 2,000 is possible soon, and then I'm a big bull for the long term. I think I'm more of a bull than ARK Invest on where I think Tesla's going to go. I think a lot of Wall Street evaluates Tesla in terms of its car production, and car production is important, and that's a big deal in some ways. But what the really big deal is the software side. The margins on cars, okay, maybe they're getting 25-30% margin on cars, but the margin on full self-driving is nearly 100%. Margins on software are insane. And we're going to see, people who follow my channel know I'm a big believer that the robo-taxi network is going to take off. And we're going to shift from a model of individual ownership of cars. I know a lot of people disagree with me on this. A lot of people think that, oh no, I want to own my own car. I'm not going to put it in the robo-taxi network. I'm sorry, I disagree with you folks. You're missing the point. The real value in Tesla and the real value for the mission is to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy. And the real value in the mission is robo-taxis mean that the EVs are used all day long, 12 hours a day, 16 hours a day. If you buy a robo-taxi capable vehicle and you only drive it a couple hours a day, you're decelerating the transition to sustainable energy. Oliver, good question about City of Vegas buying Teslas. I've seen a lot of police agencies buying Teslas. The cost of ownership and the accounting for anybody who buys a Tesla, any business or any municipality, government that buys a Tesla, it's fantastic because they save so much money. There might be some upfront cost to buy the vehicle that's more than another vehicle, but then your cost per mile just drops to the bottom. And like police cars in particular drive a lot of miles. So the benefit adds up fast. And I just saw some police agency saying that the cost per mile that they saved, they made their money back in 19 months. They forecast it would take 24 months for it to pay for itself, and it ended up paying for itself in 19 months. So there's a huge market for these. Anybody who's and this is the thing about the accelerating the transition to sustainable energy. We want these vehicles to do more miles. Graham, I want to talk. That's a good thing. I'll talk about that, Graham, about young people stopping taking driving tests. We're trying to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy. If you buy an EV and stick it in your garage, and it only drives for an hour or two a day, then there's all the robo-taxi operating 12 hours a day is taking 12 ICE vehicles off the road. It's reducing oil consumption. It's reducing pollution by taking those other vehicles off the road and replacing them. And there's so many other benefits. You're reducing. If you think about if you've ever been an Uber user, which I've used Uber and Lyft, robo-taxi is going to dramatically reduce the cost. It's going to make life better for so many people. I want to turn to what Graham said. Young people have already stopped taking driving tests. I've been predicting this for a while. I have a 15-year-old who just got a learner's permit. And I question whether the 15-year-old should get a driver license because my insurance rate, when my older kid got the driver's license, the insurance rates went through the roof. It's like $2,500 more a year, something insane. If you get your kid a car, it's $4,000 a year. This is Florida insurance rates, by the way, South Florida insurance rates. So if you could just have your kid take Uber, forget about even robo-taxis, just taking Uber. It depends how many miles your kid is driving. It makes more sense to take Uber than it does to get them a driver's license. Well, now you switch to where robo-taxi costs half what Uber costs. It's a huge difference. Yes, insurance for under 25s is very expensive, Graham. That's what I was just talking about. Somebody said that Cybertruck is the ultimate robo-taxi. I think, and I want to talk about that because I talk about that in some other videos. I don't think there's one ultimate robo-taxi. I think the beauty of the robo-taxi network is you figure out what kind of vehicle you need and you tell your app, you go on your phone and you go on your app and you Tesla app and you say, hey, send me a Cybertruck, send me a Model 3, you know what, today I need a Model X. The ability to choose what you need. And Jeffrey, I actually think the ultimate robo-taxi is going to be a podcar robo-taxi. I have a video about podcar robo-taxis if you look it up. Single passenger robo-taxis are going to so dramatically reduce the cost per mile. And the goal is if you reduce the cost per mile, and with podcar robo-taxis and my fantasy of I'm admitting it's a fantasy. I think it's going to happen, but it's down the road. If you can produce more vehicles Probably, if a Model 3 costs ultimately $30 or $25 or $30,000 to build, if you come up with a vehicle that costs $5,000 to build that uses 1/3 the battery pack or 1/4 the battery pack, you're able to produce 4 times as many vehicles, which further accelerates the transition to sustainable energy, and it further makes the rest of our lives better because it lowers our cost of transportation, it cleans our air. There's so many good things about it. I really just wanted to talk this morning for those who aren't. I don't normally follow the daily share price. It's kind of funny. I'm on Twitter and I follow a lot of Twitter people. So I saw somebody on Twitter talking about the share price, and then JPR07 or 007 tweeted the release of this. And I don't. If you didn't see this already, where'd it go? I gotta find it now. I think I lost my image. Tesla announced, I can't find my image. I'm sorry, I'm not that good at this. I'm not that good at this. Let's see if I can pull it up again. It's here. I don't know how to get it. Let's try doing it again. No, not that one. Sorry for just a second. Okay, now I can't get it. I don't know where it went. Tesla announced that they delivered 90,000 vehicles this morning, which, if you missed it earlier, that is 18,000 more vehicles than the consensus Wall Street estimate. It's very likely Tesla's going to have a profit. Once you sit behind a Tesla in a drive-through, you never want to sit behind another ICE vehicle. Yeah, you're not getting the tailpipes. Sorry, Jim Whitehead. Facebook was YouTube was censoring your comment. I just cleared it. Goodfella asked this question: do you think Tesla should make an Elio-type car where the passenger sits in back of the driver? Think of the low drag. I think that misses the point, Goodfella. I think Tesla should make a car with only one seat for the passenger, and there's no driver. The car drives itself. So I don't think there's a point in having a 2-passenger vehicle as much as there is a point in having a 1-passenger vehicle. I will say, just so people know, I haven't put out I made 2 recent videos that I thought should have done a lot better. If you're interested in vehicle to grid, I made 2 videos. My most recent 2 videos, my most recent 2 upload videos were about vehicle to grid, and I believe I successfully squashed it. For some reason, YouTube didn't show the videos to a lot of people, but the statistics showed people were watching the video, and people watched a lot of the videos. And one of them has J.B. Straubel, the co-founder of Tesla and CTO at the time, talking about why vehicle to grid is not going to happen. But I'm looking forward to some videos. I've got some surprises coming. I think the working title of my next video is going to be 5 Tesla or 5 Elon Musk innovations that are coming in 2021. And I think people are going to be surprised. So what you were talking about with an Elio type vehicle, I think there's, if anybody looks at Master Plan Part 2, the second master plan that Elon and Tesla issued, there's a vehicle they talk about that we haven't heard anything about. They talked about a Tesla bus, and no one has talked about a Tesla bus. Jim, I think it was the nature of your comment. There was something in the language. I don't know why they censored your comment. I'm not sure about that. But a Tesla bus. Think about a Tesla bus. At first, I was like, well, my whole theory about podcar robotaxis is that the cost per mile ends up being so low if you make a really small and efficient vehicle that you wouldn't bother. But then I was thinking about this, and where I'm heading with this is I think Tesla might make a bus. On the one hand, if anybody watched, I did a live stream with a friend of mine who's homeless, who rides buses. And we talked about how robotaxis could make his life better, but it still ends up being too expensive for people who are on the lower end of our socioeconomic scale. You know, it might cost him twice as much as the bus and take him twice as long, and he just can't afford the extra money. And I think there's a lot of people out there like that. And so it may be possible that a Tesla bus could make a huge difference in enabling the poorest people to go there. And David, yes, bus and van needs to happen. I think the way it's going to happen, I don't think it's going to be like a 100-passenger bus. I don't think it's necessary. I think something like what they're talking about doing for the Boring Company loops, where they might convert a Model X or a Model 3 platform to handle 12 or 16 passengers. The key is that if you have a vehicle that will fill, that you can fill with more than a few people, if its cost of operation per mile is not much higher than a regular robotaxi, but you can get 5 to 10 people, especially if you get 10 people in there, then each person's cost per mile drops by 90%. And that can really, and when that may be for local transit going around town, for particularly for poor people who can't afford the higher end ride, or people who are trying to save a few bucks. But particularly, I think for long distance travel, if you create tunnels or other, maybe it doesn't have to be tunnels, but you take long trips, if you're able to get the cost per mile down for the vehicle, and then you're able to squeeze 20 people on there. So it's Miami to New York, or longer trips, 100 miles plus, 500 miles plus trips. The savings per individual could be substantial. And I'm still looking at this future where I live in Boca Raton in South Florida, and I'm not a Disney person myself, but a lot of people love going to Disney. And I'm imagining, what if it only costs $5 to go to Disney? What if you're able to go to Disney for $5 and get there in 20 minutes? It's like now it's a 3-hour drive, and it costs you, $50 when you get through with it. Yes, Graham, thank you. What do you think? Yes, Span, that is actually one of my other videos. I've started working on it. It'll be part of the 5 innovations, the Model 2. I think it's going to be called something like the Model A. There's a feint. We've seen people say sexy cars, and they put the ATV as the A. I don't think the ATV is the A in sexy cars. I think there's going to be a Model A. I think it's the design in China model. I think it's going to be a smaller 4-passenger vehicle, not 5-passenger vehicle, primarily for poorer countries. And by poor, I'm including China, which is not really poorer than us anymore. But what Elon talked about when he was in Shanghai doing the Model 3 delivery ceremony was that they were going to develop a car in China, design a car in China for world consumption. And when you want to reach markets like India and Africa, there's all these places where people are still spewing a lot of pollution out of their tailpipes. You can make a huge difference for reducing world pollution. China has terrible air. If you spread the vehicles faster, a pop screen. All right. Well, I'm gonna wing a pop screen. Thank you, Patricia. I have a pop screen, so I'll put it over. It's not really ideal, but I'll hold it. So thank you, Patricia, for that suggestion. I bought a pop screen, but it doesn't fit on the microphone, so I'm just gonna hold it. Patricia, is this better? Can you hear me better? Let me know. Unfortunately, your comments are on a 20-second delay, so I don't see them right away. So if this looks crazy, if this isn't working, let me know. I'm holding it with my hand instead of, I don't have something to attach it to. So I think the Model A, not the Model 2 that Span mentioned, but a Model A would fit nicely. It will be a lower cost vehicle. It's not in Master Plan Part 2. But I think that if they can get the cost of production of a vehicle down to $10,000, I think the best they can possibly achieve with a Model 3 or Model Y is somewhere around $25,000 for Tesla's cost of making that vehicle. If they can design a new vehicle that costs less to produce, if they can get that cost down to $10,000 or $15,000, if they can do it with a smaller, oh, thank you, Justin. If they can do it with a smaller battery pack, this is one of the other big things. The low-end battery pack for a Tesla Model 3, Model Y is maybe, thank you, Heather, nice to see you on here. The low-end cost for a Tesla Model 3 or Model Y, the low-end battery pack is maybe 50 kilowatt hours, and maybe they could go down to 40 kilowatt hours in some markets for some uses. But if you were able to make a much lighter, much smaller vehicle that could still squeeze 4 people in, which if you know third world countries, if you know what life is like in places like India and smaller vehicles in a lot of countries, this isn't crazy. If you were able to make it small and light enough, you could get that battery pack down to, let's say, 25 kilowatt hour battery pack. And if you can squeeze a 25 kilowatt hour battery pack in there, that means you can make twice as many vehicles. And that means you can take twice as many ICE cars off the road. You're cleaning the air quicker. You are reducing our dependence on oil and fossil fuels. All these great things. Just want to come back to the point of this video. I've gone off on a lot of digression here. I appreciate all the Tesla garbage trucks. Yeah, sure. The point of this video was, if you're following Tesla, and I haven't looked at the share price since I started the video, but this Tesla share price shot up this morning to over $1,200 a share on news from Tesla that they were able to deliver 90,000 vehicles in Q2, which is 18,000 vehicles more than the consensus Wall Street estimate. This makes it very likely that Tesla will be pretty likely that Tesla will be profitable this quarter. If they make a single dollar of profit this quarter, they're very likely to get S&P 500 inclusion. With S&P 500 inclusion, lots of exchange traded funds and mutual funds will have to buy Tesla stock, and the demand for Tesla stock will shoot up. The supply of Tesla stock, I'm not selling. Oh, and I mentioned this. So the reason I'm not selling, all right, let's suppose Tesla goes to 2,000. I'm not selling. Let's suppose Tesla goes to 5,000. I'm not selling. There's a lot of nuts like me who are passionate believers in the Tesla model. I'm not talking about, yeah, I believe in the environmental value and all those things. No, Graham, I'm not talking about a 40 kilowatt hour battery pack. I'm talking about a 25 kilowatt hour battery pack or a 20 kilowatt hour battery pack. The smaller you're able to make that battery pack, the more you're able to stretch your battery production to produce more vehicles and more types of vehicles, to free up batteries for semi, to free up batteries for other purposes. Chester Cheetah asked, do I think the stock will drop hard if they don't make a dollar profit? No, Cheetah, because you only have to look out 3 months and say if they even lose $10 million or $50 million, as long as they make a dollar profit in the third quarter, they're going to be profitable for a year and have a profit in that quarter, and they're going to get S&P 500 inclusion. So I do think it's likely to happen this quarter, but that stuff's over my head. I'm not that much of a Wall Street guy. I'm not that much of I'm an investor, but I don't do all those things. Yeah, no, and getting to your point about don't sell if you don't need the money. My Tesla stock's in retirement funds. I can't touch it for 10 years anyway. Yes, I do think we would import the city car from China, Graham. I do think that's likely to happen. So if you believe in the robo-taxi future, if you believe that the vehicles that Tesla is producing today, that it costs them $30,000 to produce, will be worth $200,000 starting a year or two from now or more, because of the value they derive as robo-taxis, because they're making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year in profit being operated as robo-taxis. If you believe in that model, and I have a video called Tesla Trillions, and I have another recent video I forgot the name of, where I talk about why robo-taxis are so valuable. No, Lisa, it doesn't require 4 consecutive profitable quarters. It requires a year, a four quarters total profit, and the last quarter profitable. So if you look at what that looks like, if Tesla makes 1 million vehicles and each vehicle makes $50,000 in profit a year, then that's $50 billion in profit from those vehicles for just 1 year, and they keep making money. Wow, thank you, Matthias. First time ever, thank you, Matthias. I just received a €2 contribution from Matthias. Hey, if you like this video, if you like my channel, I certainly wouldn't mind getting some contributions. Very much appreciated, Matthias. You're the first one. So I'm a huge fan of yours now. First one I've ever received. So if you think about that, if Tesla makes 1 million vehicles and each vehicle produces $50,000 in profit that year, then they make $50 billion in profit that year on those vehicles. If they don't even bother selling them, they just hold the vehicles and run them as robo-taxis themselves. If they sell them for $200,000, they made $200 billion in profit that year, or $170 billion in profit that year. But the next year, they make another 1 million vehicles. So the first year's vehicles make another $50 billion in profit, and the new year vehicle make another $50 billion in profit, and you've got $2 billion or $100 billion in profit that year. And then the next year, they make 1 million. But they're not just making 1 million vehicles a year. They're increasing. Thank you, Jim. Apparently, Tesla stock's up a little bit more, now 12.14, according to Jim. They're going to increase production. They're going to make 1 million vehicles, then they're going to make 1.5 million vehicles, then they're going to make 2.25 million vehicles, then they're going to make 3 million vehicles. And within a few years, Tesla is operating a robo-taxi network with 5 or 10 million vehicles, each vehicle making $50,000 in profit a year. And if 10 million vehicles are making $50,000 in profit a year, that is $500 billion in profit a year. And now you look at how investors value companies, and you look at something called the price earnings ratio. I'm gonna say I'm not a big investor guy. Don't take it. And I'm ridiculously overweight Tesla, so I'm biased here. But so this is not investment advice. I'm not qualified to give you investment advice. I'm just telling you my opinions, and don't follow it if you don't like it. But if the price earnings ratio is this concept that you look at a company's earnings in a given year and you say, okay, if it's going to make the same amount of money every year, so it's making $50 billion of profit a year, and it's going to keep making that money, well, then the company's worth more than $50 billion. It's probably worth, 300, a couple hundred billion or whatever. It's worth typically you see a lot of price earnings ratios for stable, normal companies around 10. So a company that's making $50 billion in profit is worth $500 billion. Or a company making $5 billion is worth $50 billion, let's say. But if the company is growing, the price earnings ratio grows up. Jim, I'll talk about the competition for robotaxi market in a second. Thank you for bringing it up. So Tesla is a growing company. It's a rapidly growing company. So a price earnings ratio of 30 or even 50 is not insane. Well, if you have a 30 price earnings ratio on $100 billion in profit, you have a $3 trillion company. The current market cap is 220 billion. So we're looking at a Tesla that could be worth 10 times what it's worth now. Well, right now the shares are around $1,200. If it's worth 10 times that, then it's worth $12,000 a share. And hey, Boring Revolution. At what point? So let me talk about Jim's question first, Boring Revolution, and then we'll talk to. So Jim, you talked about competition. Elon talked about this. There is a huge market for robotaxis. There's somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 billion cars on the road in the world. So if Tesla makes 1 million robotaxis, and conservatively, a robotaxi replaces 5 ICE vehicles. So they make 1 million robotaxis, they replace 5 million ICE vehicles. The world needs 1 billion vehicles. And if you lower the cost of transportation, which they're going to do, then the market for transportation grows and there may be more. So, Jim, Tesla would have to make 100 million robotaxis to make a dent in competition to the point where it would bring the profit of robotaxis down. So I'm not saying it never happens. I'm just saying that moment when the cost of robotaxi rides goes down is at least 10 years away. So there's a lot of room for that profit. And by the time that the cost of a robotaxi ride goes down, the cost of producing robotaxis will have gone down too. So there's a huge room for profit there. Somebody asked me, a Boring Revolution asked me, at what point do you say I've made too much profit and Tesla need to sell? I've made a lot of profit on Tesla. My attitude is when you believe that it's, well, I think the big question is when do you think it's going to moderate? If you look, I think it's going to go to 10,000, 12,000, 20,000, who knows? Tesla goes to 5,000 tomorrow, I'm not selling because I think it's going to keep going up. I would say though, the sensible investor that I used to be would sell some to there's something called balancing your portfolio. Thank you, Gareth. I appreciate that. There's a value, in this concept called rebalancing your portfolio. And if you look at people who invested in Enron, they were Enron employees and they had like a lot of their wealth tied up in Enron stock, and then Enron collapsed, then that was very, very bad. So we can't know that Tesla is for real. I'm a huge believer. I'm a monster believer. I think all questions should be gone, but you can never know what kind of catastrophic event could change things. Somebody said to me, well, what if Elon Musk dies? And I actually think Tesla is past the point where I think Elon is very, very valuable to the company. But I think their momentum is at a point now, and the Tesla team is so good now that if Elon walked away tomorrow or something happened to Elon tomorrow, the people who are running Tesla they're already invested. They already get a huge value. You're not going to be able to stop this train anymore. So I think, but I still think there's always that risk that something goes wrong, that somebody finds a way to screw it up, something else comes along. There's that small chance. So you shouldn't have 99% of your assets in Tesla. Now I own a lot of equity in my house. I own, some other stuff, but the growth has made my Tesla stock a very, very substantial portion of my portfolio. And it would be sensible for me to sell and rebalance, but I can't talk myself into it yet. So I don't know the answer to the question, when should I sell? And I'm not qualified to advise you of that. Yes, Lisa Roy, that is correct. Thank you. About to get included in the S&P 500, it must have positive reported earnings in the most recent quarter as well as over the 4 most recent quarters. That's total, Lisa. That's not each quarter. You can have a loss in 1 quarter, but it's the cumulative over the 4 quarters, I believe. That's what I've read. I'm not an expert on the S&P 500, but that's what I've read. Jim says it's a roller coaster. Stock will cool off after it's in the S&P 500, go down to half. I don't think so, Jim. I think that the nuts like me who are holding stock, the demand is going to remain high. Then all these ETFs and mutual funds are going to be compelled to hold. So who's selling? Jim, let me ask you this question. Jim Whitehead, if you can comment. Who do you think is going to sell? For Tesla stock to go down, someone has to sell. Well, who's selling? The shorts can't sell. The shorts are screwed. The ETFs and mutual funds can't sell because they have to maintain it as a share of their portfolio. And if the stock goes up, they have to buy even more. Elon's not selling. I'm not selling. Who's selling? There aren't enough shares out there to be sold for it to make sense. Let me see what other questions there were. Elon wants. Yeah, I do think 10 years from now, I could see Elon saying, you know what, the company's mature. I'm going to sell some stock so I can fund Mars. And he's going to, at some point in the next maybe 10 years from now, I think I could see Elon saying, Tesla's on that sustainable path I wanted to be on. I don't need to be here full time anymore. I'm going to devote myself full time to the Mars project with Starship and SpaceX. I think Neuralink is actually, I think Neuralink is even a bigger game changer for the world than anything else. I did make a video about Neuralink. I encourage you to watch that if you want to see it. Hi, Jaime. Thank you for saying hello. If anybody, and the Boring Revolution, the Boring Company, my friend, the Boring Revolution is on, has been commenting on the chat. We are talking about doing a live stream on the 18th to talk about the future of the Boring Company. I see the Boring Company tying in with Tesla in many ways and making it so much better. Let's see. Tesla's amazing because new short sellers come in. You sell or that's my friend Heather, my neighbor Heather. You sell or reduce any stock when you can't sleep anymore because you are so excited. But we are still going up, up, up. Yeah. It seems too good to be true only because Elon. Yeah, I think one of the things that's going on is if I'm sure some of you have friends and you talk about Tesla and their eyes glaze over. Thank you, Cheetah Run Out. Wow, that's very, very kind of you. Anybody who wants to give me money, to donate money, there should be a button somewhere to contribute. Very, very much appreciated. Thank you, Patricia. Absolutely appreciated. The rest of the world doesn't get Tesla yet, and people like me are making YouTube videos, and Zach and Jesse and so many other YouTubers are talking about it. We're spreading the word, and our friends are, and like my friends think I'm crazy on a lot of subjects. So I think to some extent they think I'm crazy about Tesla. Yeah, Javed, my average cost base is around 300. So Jaime, I think it's always a good time to buy Tesla shares, but I'm not an investment advisor, so don't listen to me for investment advice. I'm just sharing my excitement about what's happening. I think that the world is coming around. Like, every time somebody buys a Tesla and their neighbors see it and they show it off to their neighbors. If you have a Tesla, show you. One of my neighbors took me. I don't have a Tesla yet. I have an early Cybertruck reservation. Couldn't get a Model 3 in time when the Model 3 wasn't ready when I needed to buy a car. And I am now looking at that Cybertruck coming hopefully sometime in 2021, if not the end of this year, but probably early 2021, I'm hoping. I want my Cybertruck dual motor. I'm very excited about that. But anytime anybody gets a Tesla and they share it, they show their friends, another person's converted. And we're just at this point where a lot of people are starting to recognize how amazing Tesla is. And I think the market is like people, the Tesla Q haters, the fudsters love to talk about how there's some kind of problem with Tesla. There's always finding some excuse. Oh, there isn't enough demand, or they have some other excuse to say why Tesla isn't going to succeed, and they're crazy. So gearheads have been avoiding Tesla for years now. I know one who was scared by the acceleration on a ride on a P100D. Yeah, actually, Jim, you mentioned that. If anybody's following the what's coming with Tesla, and you've seen the Roadster and the projections that the Roadster will do 0 to 60 in 1.9 seconds. And again, I'm not an adrenaline junkie anymore. I'm in my mid 50s. I just want the car to get me there. If the AC/DC song "Highway to Hell" comes on, I drive fast. But mostly, I'm actually more interested in maximizing my efficiency than I am in my speed these days. But the new Model S performance Raven 0 to 60 in 2.3 seconds. I'm thinking, okay, when the Model S Plaid comes out, it's got to be faster than that. So you're probably talking about close to 2 seconds. The Roadster's only going to be 1.9 seconds, and I think there's a theory that tire traction is the limit, and you simply won't be able to get 0 to 60 down much faster than 1.9 seconds, maybe 1.8. There's a certain limit unless you put the rocket boosters in. James, thank you very much for the contribution. Much appreciated. Yeah, Zach, Thaddy, thank you for your comment, James. Much appreciated. Yeah, no, I'm not. People keep asking me if I think now's the time to buy Tesla. I want to stress I am not a professional investment advisor. I manage my own portfolios, and I manage a family portfolio, and I do own Tesla stock, and I am not selling. If I have so much Tesla stock for the size of the portfolios that I am not buying. My average cost basis is 300. I believe that if Tesla's going to go to 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, it does. I suppose I should buy more, but at a certain point when it's more than half of your IRA, I think you got to say, I can't buy more yet. And it's enough. I think you can buy as big a battery as you want up to maximum all the Cybertrucks. We're going to see. That's an interesting question, Thaddeus. Will there be larger battery options in Cybertrucks? We'll see about that. Yeah, no, Jim, I agree. With the rocket boost, you could get to 1.1 seconds, but that's going to be a ridiculous extra cost package. I'm just saying, it's already amazing how fast the Model S is, that for $100,000 you can buy a supercar that also seats 5 really comfortably and is an amazing vehicle. That's the current Model S performance Raven. And the Model S long range is already over 400 miles of range. It's amazing. So what's coming, the future, what Tesla is going to deliver over the next 2 or 3 years is just going to be amazing stuff. And I can't give you personal advice. If you don't own Tesla stock now, yeah, I would say buy it if it's a significant portion of your portfolio already. But don't take advice from a guy like me. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm just excited. I'm an excited Tesla fan who's really excited to see good news. I'm hoping they do a dual motor long range Cybertruck, Jeffrey says, and I think that's what Thaddeus was responding to. It would make sense for Tesla to offer an extended range battery. I have a video where I talk about the Cybertruck battery pack. The key advantage of Cybertruck that a lot of people didn't notice. If you look at, and I apologize to those who are offended, but I included pictures of girls in bikinis in that video, which is something I used to do. I don't do anymore. It's the last time I've done it because I got so much negative feedback. I personally like the eye candy in the videos. I'm sorry, call me a sexist or whatever, but it's done. I'm not doing it anymore. But that video, the substance of that video is really important at understanding. Cybertruck is longer. It has a longer wheelbase. It's wider. It has a wider track, and that means there's more space underneath the vehicle to hold a larger battery pack. Hi, Peyton. Thank you for saying hello. Heather, there's a lot of opinions about what Tesla's worth, but if somebody told you to sell at 800, you'd feel pretty bad right now. If you sold at 800, you wouldn't be thinking that was a good call. I don't know the answer. So when you guys talk about the potential for Cybertruck having a larger battery pack, a long-range model, there's so much room under Cybertruck for a larger battery pack. Even if you go with lithium iron phosphate, you can get a pretty substantial battery. And their lithium iron phosphate has low energy density, but it's something that Tesla is looking at. But if you use the current nickel, cobalt, aluminum batteries, there's 50% more room than there's under a Model 3. So you're talking about well over 100 kilowatt hours if you want to squeeze it in there to a Cybertruck. And if you put a 120 kilowatt hour pack in a Cybertruck, you're going to get 500 miles of range. Tesla's on the verge. Yes, happy Ferrang. That's what the purpose of this video was. That's where I started. I mentioned a couple times. I got excited this morning. I saw someone on Twitter, a couple of people on Twitter talking about Tesla's share price. I think the Twitter guy I follow who posted the big news release was JPR 007, JPR 007, and I included it earlier in the video. Tesla's press release that they delivered 90,000 cars, which is 18,000 vehicles over the Wall Street consensus estimate, and a very good feeling that this is going up. Thank you, Johnny. Johnny, I don't have an opinion on Zoox at all. I am an Amazon investor. Jeff Bezos, there's a lot of people who love to see a rivalry between Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. Maybe there's a rivalry. I don't care. I think Jeff Bezos is brilliant. I bought stock in Amazon in 2013. My stock is more than 10 times what I paid for it. And my biggest regret, I talked about rebalancing earlier. I have two big regrets in investing. One, I didn't buy more Amazon when I bought it in 2013. And two, I sold some stock in 2018 to rebalance my portfolio. Now, I didn't have the same passionate view of Amazon that I have of Tesla. I think that Amazon is a good investment. I think it's a good company. Again, I'm not a qualified advisor. The stock price is going to bounce up and down. It could drop 100. I really don't focus on the day-to-day share price. I think I look at important things like, are they delivering? What's that? The biggest news, I think it was in response to Kristen Netton yesterday. I'm not sure. Elon tweeted about the software improvements in full self-driving and how in 2 to 4 months they expect to roll out a foundational rewrite of the software in Tesla vehicles, and that will dramatically increase the features and the speed with which it learns, and the 3D labeling, all these things. We talked about, I talked about 3D labeling with Omar Kazi in a recent live stream, and I really, that video did not get nearly as many views as it deserves. Omar Kazi is brilliant. Omar Kazi is about as close as you get to, he's about as close as you get to Elon Musk. In terms of insight, when we talked about what's happening with the foundational rewrite, where the software is going, maybe it was Whole Mars was who Elon was responding to in that reply tweet in the last 24 hours. What's happening with how the software for autopilot, for full self-driving, for navigate on autopilot, where that's heading. I think we're going to see robotaxi live in the wild sometime in 2021. I think it's going to be approved. I live in Florida, which is the laws in Florida are very friendly to self-driving cars. I think we are going to see robotaxi network operating in Florida by the end of 2021. And that's the kind of thing that will spike the share price to unheard of heights. $10,000 a share or higher. Anybody the only thing holding Tesla's share price back is that people don't get it yet. Not enough people get it. ARK Invest gets it. Omar Kazi gets it. I think. Maybe I'm wrong. It's don't listen to Warren for investment advice. It's just Warren being excited. So sorry. You asked me about Amazon. I think Amazon is clearly riding high. The COVID-19 shutdowns and the panic have led to a lot of people ordering from Amazon. I have been an Amazon. I bought Amazon in 2013 because I realized I was addicted to shopping on Amazon. I don't go to stores anymore. If the first place I look is Amazon. If I think it's going to save me $5 to drive to Walmart, I buy it from Amazon instead, because it's so much easier to just order it and have it delivered to the house. Why would you go out to a store if you can just have it delivered to you? I don't, if you love shopping, okay, but Johnny says, if FSD keeps increasing until it goes, my worry is people will not afford it. Johnny, I think, watch my video on robotaxis, my videos on robotaxis. I don't believe the future is people buying Tesla vehicles. The short-term future, immediate next 5 years, people are buying Tesla vehicles. But when it gets to the point that robotaxi network is operating consistently everywhere, I think Tesla stops selling most vehicles, keeps them, and operates them as robotaxis. So if you want your own vehicle, you want your own Tesla vehicle, buy a Model 3, buy a Model Y now, get your Cybertruck reservation in, and get ready and buy that and hold it. Because the value of these vehicles is going to go through the roof. You're used to buying a vehicle, like I bought my Passat for $18,000 in 2018. Now it's probably worth, $10,000. You bought a Model 3 for $40,000 last year, it's still worth $40,000. and its value is going to go up, not down. I don't know anything about Zoox. A couple of people have asked me about Zoox. I don't know enough about Zoox to say anything. Listen, anybody who gets in this space, I wish them well. I think comma.ai is the most interesting. If you know George Hotz or George Hotz, follow him on Twitter. Comma.ai is really interesting. I think Tesla's way ahead of everybody, but I think my bet is number 2 is comma.ai before anybody else. But if Jeff Bezos throws $10 billion into Zoox, maybe he can get somewhere. It goes to 100. I don't know that Tesla stock goes to 100,000. That would be if you work out what the market cap is at a share price of 100,000, that's probably impossible. I'm optimistic, but I'm not sure that's possible. I actually kind of wonder, like, how high could Tesla go if everything comes true? I could see a market cap of 10 trillion. At a certain point, there's, maybe it expands the economy because as Elon said, if you're able to lower the cost of transportation, you're making the simulation more efficient. So yeah, I think the game's already over, Johnny. But yes, I think if the biggest thing is if Tesla is able to deliver a smaller, more efficient vehicle, the key thing here is if it uses a smaller battery pack and they're able to manufacture the vehicle in volume, then the big limitation has always been battery production. The big limitation has always been battery production. So if you can get down to a vehicle with a 25 kilowatt hour battery pack or 20 kilowatt hour battery pack and still get the range you need, still do what you need it to do, then you're able to produce twice as many vehicles or 3 times as many vehicles with the same number of batteries, and that is what accelerates the transition to sustainable energy. New money from Fed can justify such market caps. Well, yeah, if we have hyperinflation, I guess the market cap can go forever. Waiting for EMP mode to first strike MS70 prove. Okay, Dwayne, you went over my head on that one. I'm not sure what you mean by that. EMP code sounds like electromagnetic pulse. I don't know. Anyway, so listen, I really appreciate everybody watching. I'm going to close in a second. I just want to restate what the purpose of this video was at the beginning. For those who didn't notice, you can see on the graph next to me, Tesla stock price shot up this morning. On news that Tesla delivered more vehicles than the Wall Street estimated, 90,000 vehicles delivered ahead of the 72,000 consensus estimate. And I don't want to get into macroeconomics, Dwayne. So Tesla is very likely to get S&P 500 inclusion. If not this quarter, then the next quarter. A huge spike in share price should happen when that happens because of all the demand from mutual funds and exchange traded funds that operate on an index model, and they have to own a certain amount of Tesla stock. So really great news. Listen, thanks to everybody for watching this. First time I've ever done a live stream like this talking about a stock move and early news, but I saw it and I figured let me get out there. Really encourage anybody, watch Hyperchange today, Hyperchange, and maybe solving the money problem. I would expect Hyperchange to do a great live stream today. I'm going to be watching for it. Probably my favorite YouTube channel is Hyperchange, and solving the money problem. He's really got some great thoughts. So keep your eyes on that. Thanks everybody for watching, and thanks especially to those who contributed. First time I've seen that. Very flattered. Hope everybody has a great day. Thank you, Heather. Very nice. Take care, everybody.